Okay, I'm joined by John Economos, Johnny Warren's best friend, one of Australia's leading sports journalists. John, how are you first of all?
Yeah, not bad. Alive.
Alive. I wanted to ask you first of all, John, it's been 10 years since Johnny passed away. 10 years, and we all miss him. And 7 months, absolutely. We all miss him. He had an enormous contribution to Australian football and to Australian sport. What do you think Johnny would think of football today?
He'd be proud, but he'd keep raising the bar. Like many people would ask him, will Australia ever hold the World Cup? And his answer was always, when's Australia going to win the World Cup? So he was a visionary, super intelligent.
He was ahead of his time, wasn't he?
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
Do you think he would be happy with the A-League?
Overall, yes, but the A-League today lacks the personalities of his era, and the main reason for that was the massive influx of migration. Italians, Austrians and Greeks, Yugoslavs, I'm talking late 50s, 60s, that revolutionised Australian soccer. I don't use the term football, which is fashionable, but it's not to me, because it's the worst country on the planet to use that terminology, football. The footy show is rugby league, the footy show is Aussie rules, the footy show. I'm going to the footy, which one? In Australia, it's soccer. Everyone identifies, even the mothers, junior soccer. So why change it?
So you've always believed that it differentiates the game?
John believed in football because technically it's more correct. It's the ball played with the foot only, or the head. So he was a believer. But the guy that legislated it and brought it in was a rugby union guy, the first CEO of the A-League, John O'Neill. And anyhow, it's not really working. The players call it football, and families associated with A-League players call it football. Most sports writers, soccer writers, call it football, but every now and again they slip up and they call it the soccer. I'm a traditionalist. It's soccer.
As Johnny's best friend, you grew up with him. You knew him better than anybody else.
Well, after 48 and a half years, I would think so, yes.
Some may even say you look like him.
Many people have said that. We were totally different, mentally identical. I was the noisy one, he was the silent one. I was the rough-looking one, he was the attractive, good-looking one. But mentally, we had mental intercourse that was incredible, that was cultivated over many years. We could talk our own language in front of anyone, they wouldn't know what we're saying.
How much do you miss him?
Very much, more than the day he died. More, because half of him was me. When he died, half of me died because of the memories.
What are some of your, or what is the most treasured memory you have as a child, as a young person? There's probably many, but what is one that you really enjoyed that you think about often?
It's very hard to split because in 48 and a half years, he was just super intelligent, and we had instant mental intercourse that grew stronger and stronger as the decades rolled over. We first met at the first day of high school, and from memory it was Tuesday morning, 11:10, last Tuesday of January 1956. How's that?
I think that's pretty spot on.
And he was coming out of the canteen, he looked at me, he says, what's your name? I said, John. He said, we were both in short pants, 12 years old. And he said, mine too. And then he walked off. And the next day he came and sat next to me at lunch under a tree. And we started talking. We were in different classes, same year at high school. Cleveland Street Boys High. And then we became inseparable, like Abbott and Costello, you know.
Do you think it was your understanding of sport that made you connect, or do you think it was something higher than that?
No, I was a mad rugby league fan back then, and he took an interest in most sports, especially where an Australian was involved in international sports, even rugby league. But you know, soccer was his passion. But what most people don't know, and most of them are dead now, that did know, like old school friends, he was an outstanding cricketer, and I'd venture to say a better cricketer than a soccer player, which is it's a huge statement to make, but it's true. I remember bowling him out once in the practice nets, and there was no one there to see it. Just he and I flattened his legs down with the mouth cutter, and I never slept for a week, and it was like taking Bradman's wicket.
Wow. And
he was an all-rounder, great batsman. The only similar style, very defiant to the ex-Test captain Steve Waugh. He was a driver, a cutter. His favourite shot was the square cut, which was a suicidal shot, and he tried to avoid playing that. You're a mug to get caught behind. Rarely he would hook. That's from a batting point of view. And to this day, and we've been missing from school now, going on for 58 years, he still has the batting averages of that school, 69 batting averages.
Wow.
He was a magnificent fieldsman. He was an unplayable. He was a leg break bowler, right wrist, leg break bowler, unplayable with a vicious bounce, a more savage bounce than Shane Warne. And he used to practice with a tennis ball, so it was much easier for him with a cricket ball. And then he was a pace bowler as well, from a short run-up with a slinging action like at Terra Thompson, Dennis Lilly's mate, and a quick pace bowler. So he was wrist, leg spinner, and an unyielding, defiant batsman. You just couldn't get him out.
So as a cricketer, he could have really made it.
Another big statement, in 1972, had John not given, had he not given cricket away, I have no doubt he would have been the Australian Test captain in 72 instead of your South Australian resident, Ian Chappell. Because Chappell was known for his batsmanship. John was the all-rounder, just magnificent.
As a soccer player, particularly for the young people who have never seen Johnny play, what sort of soccer player was he? Was he one of the best? Was he an average?
He was in the top three in my era, 48 and a half years. Johnny Watkins, Ray Bartz, and John Warren. John Warren was the best, the three best captains that I've ever met or saw play. Interviewed one of them, other than John. Roy Keane from Manchester United, a real captain. The Brazilian defiant captain, Dunga, and John Warren. John was an outstanding captain with no mouth, just by his actions.
So he led by example.
Oh, magnificent. In 1967, we were losing the grand final against Apia. That was just unbeatable. And at half-time, it was 3-0 to Apia, and it's all over. And John came out just furious, and whoever was playing a little bit weak, he'd play alongside him, the left back or the right winger, and just stimulate them by example, and we ended up winning 5-3. He set up 4 goals, never scored one, set up 4 of them.
Do you think that vision on the pitch is what helped him as a visionary off it?
Vision and experience, and I'll tell you why. You're getting a lot of scoops here. John made his name when he broke in the first grade as a goal scorer. That's not how he started soccer. At school, he was a centre back. No one knows.
Right.
So he knew what was required from a defender. Then he became a winger as a baby when he made first grade, 15 and a half years of age. As a winger, because he was the baby of the team and he was a little bit quick. And then centre forward, leading goal scorer. And then, as he got more and more matured, he dropped back to central midfield. So all three lines, he knew what was required. He knew how to service a striker. He knew how to help the defence. He knew all around the pitch. And only recently, before high school, I found out that he actually used to interchange as a goalkeeper before high school.
So a true all-rounder.
Yes, yes. I haven't met another player that had played in all positions. And be it Roy Keane or David Beckham, none of them. Maradona, none of them. Pele, none of them.
Why do you think that so many people listened to Johnny?
Well, you've answered that already at the beginning of this interview when you said, was he a visionary? Yes, he was. Super intelligent. He'd remember things. He would learn things. A few people influenced him, and for example, in the late 50s, 58, 59, when 7 outlawed players, when I say outlawed, they became outlaws from Austria, they jumped ship from a touring squad, and they stayed in Sydney, and they played for Prague. Big names like Ninas, Jaros, Irwin, Tamandel, Baumgartner, and all the little kids, the teenage Aussies like the Johnny Watkises and the Brian Smiths. What the eyes see, the brain registers, and they were an influence on us, and that was the golden era of Australians. Apia, Hakawa, influenced by these foreign players, which the last decade or so, other than guest players, it's all died out.
And for Johnny, toward the end of his life, a lot changed in the game, from the NSL dissolving to the A-League starting. He had a very influential part to play in the Crawford Report. He knew key people, obviously, because of his career and his influence.
Well, he did that
Yeah.
in the middle of his sickness, and that helped kill him off because he was diagnosed with cancer, and he had to tour all around Australia with Crawford to compile it. And from memory, I think he strongly advocated a 12-team competition, National League, and but certainly not 14 or 16 like some advocates put forward, and not 8. But as you know, they settled on 10. But and then well, obviously it became full-time. But the personalities, for me, they're missing, because from his era, every team had 2, 3. Prague had about 7 personalities, superior personalities, standout players, entertainers, and you'd want to watch them. Today, those personalities have eroded. They're athletic, they're super fit, they're runners. The flair has been knocked out of them. Now, is that coaching? Is that the sign of the times? Is that television? I don't know. Or is it a combination of all those factors? I don't know. But, for example, I remember touring the Queensland Roar. The year that the A-League came in pre-season training, I was touring the Queensland Roar, Townsville, Brisbane, and I went and watched a trial game between the Mariners and Victory 3 weeks before the A-League started. And I was with the A-League coach of Brisbane, and after a quarter of an hour I said, there's only one player out there. And that was 10 years ago. And he said, who do you like? I said, the number 10. Today, he still thrills me. He's 36 years of age, Archie Thompson. Unpredictable, flair. He's 36. So what? So what? He delivers. Anyhow, that's me.
John, it's been really nice talking to you. It's amazing to talk to Johnny's best friend. You have a lot of knowledge. You've contributed greatly to the game. I appreciate your time, and thank you for sharing that wisdom with me.
More than welcome, Anthony.